All right, let's dive into something that's literally all around us, but we hardly ever think about it. The Town and Country Planning Act. This is the invisible rulebook that shapes our neighborhoods, our towns, and our cities. It's why that skyscraper is where it is and why there's a park down the street. So let's break down what it is and what it means for every single one of us.
You ever driving around, you see a new building pop up, and you just kind of think, who decided that was okay? Or maybe you've wondered why one neighborhood feels so open and green, while another one just feels, well, like a total mess. The thing is, it's not random at all. There's a whole system behind it, and that's what we're going to unpack today.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is the choice, right? On one side, you've got total chaos. Things just get built wherever, which leads to crazy traffic, buildings that don't belong, and just disorganized spaces. But on the other side, you've got community. You have a real vision for how things should grow, creating neighborhoods that actually work. The Town and Country Planning Act is the tool that's supposed to get us to that second option.
So why even bother with a plan? Why not just let everybody build whatever they want, wherever they want? Well, the short answer is, without some kind of framework, you get that chaos we were just talking about. This act is that framework. It's designed to help us thoughtfully build communities, not just a random collection of buildings.
And this isn't just some new idea we're tacking on. It's baked right into the law from the very beginning. The Act's own introduction talks about orderly and progressive development and preserving the things that make a place nice to live in. So from day one, the goal has always been about smart growth that makes life better for everyone.
Okay, so how do you take this big, ambitious idea and actually make it happen on the ground? Well, the Act gives the government a really powerful tool to do just that. You can think of it as the blueprint for the entire nation.
And here it is. It's called the Development Plan. This thing is the master document, the big architectural drawing for the whole country. It sets out the vision for how land should be used, and it guides pretty much everything from massive new highways all the way down to the zoning rules for your street.
And this blueprint gets into the details. We're talking about mapping out exactly where new roads or parks might go. It allocates some areas just for housing, others for industry, and protects other areas for farming. It carves out land for new schools, sets aside nature reserves, and can even pinpoint entire neighborhoods that are due for a total makeover.
So we've seen the huge national plan. But what about you? What does any of this mean if you just want to build a small extension on your house or develop a piece of land you own? This is where you get into the approval process.
First things first, we've got to understand what the Act calls development. And let me tell you, it's a broader definition than you might think. It's not just about putting up a new building. It also covers stuff like splitting a piece of land into smaller lots, or making a big change in how a property is used, like turning a family home into a storefront. If what you're doing fits that description, you're going to need permission.
But, and this is super important, the Act is also pretty reasonable about what it doesn't cover. Things like redoing your kitchen, or building a small shed in your backyard, or just using your land for farming. That stuff is generally fine. The law is focused on the big changes that actually affect the community around you. For everything else, there's a pretty clear path. First, you check out the local development plan to make sure your project fits in. Then you submit your application. After that, you wait for the decision. And here's the key part. The process has checks and balances. If they say no, it's not the end of the road. You have a legal right to appeal that decision.
So, we have the plan, and we have the process for getting approval, but any good system needs some referees, right? It needs rules for what happens when someone just decides to ignore the whole plan and do whatever they want. Let's look at how the Act actually enforces these rules.
But what if somebody just ignores the rules? I mean, we've all seen a building go up and had that little voice in our head ask, is that really supposed to be there? Well, the Act has a very direct way of dealing with that exact situation.
And that answer is called an enforcement notice. This is the main tool the authorities have. It's a formal, legal document that says, hey, what you built here is not approved. And this notice has real power. It can actually require the owner to tear the whole thing down and put the land back the way it was.
And the consequences get serious fast. You build without permission, you get the notice. If you ignore that notice, you could be looking at a fine of $1,500. If you keep ignoring it, that can turn into a daily fine of $300. And in the most extreme cases, the authorities can literally come onto the property, demolish the building themselves, and then send you the bill. So yeah, these rules definitely have teeth.
And the Act's power goes way beyond just construction sites. It also gives authorities tools to protect the general vibe and feel of our communities. They can issue something called a tree preservation order to save important trees from being cut down.
They can control billboards and ads to keep our streets from looking cluttered. They can even make landowners clean up their vacant lots so they don't turn into neighborhood eyesores. So as we start to pull all these pieces together, it becomes really clear that this law is about so much more than a boring list of do's and don'ts. It's really about how we as a country decide to shape the space that we all have to share.
At the end of the day, it's probably best not to think of this act as a barrier trying to stop you from doing things. Instead, think of it as a shared blueprint. It's a tool that we all have to help build communities that are safer, that work better, and are just nicer places to be.
And really, that brings the whole question right back to us, doesn't it? Now that we know the tools exist, we have a part to play. It's not just about what gets built. It's about the vision we have for the places we call home. So, what kind of community do you want to help build?